Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to walk through activity 1-7 titled Adding an Install Image. This is from the MCSE/MCSA Guide to Microsoft Windows Server 2012 Administration in preparation of the exam 70-411. In my edition of the book, this activity begins at the top of page 29. A quick background: in my previous video we went through and tested that WDS was configured properly to install an image to another machine on the network. In this activity we're actually going to create that installable image that will actually house the operating system that we can install over the network to that machine. This can be done using the install media for the operating system. So for example, the Windows 8 or 8.1, the Windows 10, the actual install CD, or the ISO, you can mount it and use it as well. In this case I'm actually using the Server 2012 ISO mounted in a virtual drive. And as I mentioned in the last video, there's two key files, the boot WIM and the install WIM. And we're going to be using the install WIM to actually create the installable and functional operating system that we can push out over the network. So once you have whichever install media you want to be using set up on your server, we want to open the Windows Deployment Services console, expand our server node, and select the install images. We can see that right now we have nothing, so we're going to right click in the blank space here and create a new install image. For my test environment here, we're going to be creating a Windows Server 2012 R2. So I'm going to go ahead and create a group for that specific OS. The file location, here's where we're going to browse to that install.wim. And so I'll make sure that I'm on that ISO drive, select the install, and with the server editions at least, it'll give you the option of selecting the editions that are available for install with this image. So you have your standard core, your data center core, your standard with a GUI, and your data center with a GUI. I'm going to strip all of these except for the standard with a GUI. That's the only one I want to be able to push with this image. See if we can expand the description a little bit. So it doesn't state which ones have a GUI, but it's pretty clear. The core will not have a full GUI, whereas the other will. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and use the default name and description, select Next. We can see where it's pulling from and verify everything here. Go ahead and hit Next, and it'll automatically begin creating that basic image. So this image will be the equivalent of throwing the CD into a server and installing the operating system from that CD. And again, you can do the same thing with the Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10 installation disks. One thing we can do once this has been created, Windows Server has a tool called DISM, D-I-S-M, right there. The image servicing utility, and if I can get it to run, I think you can actually run it through command prompt, and the commands that you use, you start with DISM and it tells it to use that utility, and then you give the actual command that you want to pass to that utility. So using the DISM utility, we can go and add Windows updates, we can add patches or hotfixes for security issues, and I believe those will use the .cab, so it's like the compressed version of these updates or these software packages. So one way I've seen this utilized, the WDS anyways, is that a corporation will create a virtual machine and use the installation disk to install like Windows 7 to that machine. They'll create their custom image with the custom software, the Windows updates, and all of that. and then they'll sysprep that virtual machine and create the image off of it that way. The one downside to that, it is a lot more user-friendly because you have the full GUI of your Windows 7 operating system, so you can go through, and just like you would on any regular computer, you can go through and install your software, patch your updates, and all of that. But the one downside is that you have to sysprep it to create the image. Doing it this way and using DISM to add those updates, you don't have to sysprep. For those of you that aren't familiar with sysprep, sysprep will go through and it'll strip out Microsoft licensing. So for example, the operating system will need a license. The Microsoft Office suite, if you're using that will end up needing a license. Sysprep will also go and strip out any user profiles and stuff like that. So it's kind of like it gets it back to that base, clean install, but it'll still include the packages and the programs that you want. So either way will work. Building the virtual machine and doing it through the Windows 7 GUI is definitely more user-friendly. It's a little bit easier because that's what we're used to using. Doing it through WDS, doing it this way to create that basic installation, and then using DISM to include any software you want, it's a little bit faster, and then the image is ready. You don't have to go through and sysprep it to create the image. The big note with sysprepping is that in general you can only sysprep a machine or an image 3 times, and after that 3rd time, trying to sysprep it a 4th time will fail. So if we built up a virtual machine and installed Windows 7 and the programs we wanted and the Windows updates and got it all ready, and then we sysprepped it and created an image, and then 6 months down the line we install that to our virtual machine, we install that image back to our virtual machine, we add in the new updates, because Microsoft will push out a lot of updates over a 6-month period. So we install the updates, it's already been sysprepped once, now we've added updates, we have to sysprep it again in order to create a new, more up-to-date image. And so that's 2 syspreps, and so you can very quickly hit that 3 sysprep mark, and then you have to start all over from scratch. Create, take your virtual machine, build it with a clean install from the media, and literally start from ground zero. So this method that I'm showing you will kind of bypass that, because there's no need to sysprep. You can take this image, take it offline, add in your updates, get it back online, push it out to whatever machines you want. 6 months down the road, you take it offline, add in your updates, put it back online, and it's ready to go. There's no sysprepping to be concerned with. So once this is done, we will actually have a server image ready to push out to another machine. Let me take a look. So I don't have a machine ready for it at this point. That'll be a little bit time consuming, so that'll probably be another video showing the process of actually pushing the image out to a machine. So I'll build up a server and try to get a video for that done. Once we've hit finish, we can see that we have our server 2012 standard, and it's ready to go. It's ready to be deployed to servers. In the same way that we could use DISM to push updates into this or install updates to this image, we could also use DISM to add drivers for our servers. So if all of our servers are the same model with the same hardware, we install one driver package and it's completely ready to go. Another thing that WDS can do with these images is it can create an unattend file or an answer file, and most of the time when you go and you install from the install media, you select your language and your keyboard options. You select what drive you want to install the operating system to, or what partition. When it comes back, you'll give it a computer name. So the unattend file can actually automate all of that for you. So you just set up the machine to pull this image, and it goes through and does all of that. And then when you come back to get your hands on it, it's booted up, ready to go. You might have to join it to a domain if you didn't prep that in your unattend file. But really, the unattend files can do a lot so that you don't have to get your hands on the machines as much. Since we have that there, we might as well go ahead really quickly. In my last video, we did check to make sure that WDS was configured and working correctly. Now that we actually have an install image, I'm going to go ahead and boot this machine up and make sure that it can actually see that image. We're going to do an install. And so this is going to be very basic. There's no unattend files created for it or anything yet. I haven't done that. This is just going to be making sure that that install image is available. In my future videos, I'll try to create one that shows how to configure an unattend file. To really automate the full process, you'll need two files. Your first file will go through and set up the hard drive. So it'll format it, create partitions however you want that set up. And then the second one will come through and select your language and your time zone, give the computer name if you set it up that way. So there will be two unattend files in order to completely automate the process. And once this setup begins, we should be able to get in and see that image. Alright, so our first unattend file can automate this part. So what we can do next, we give our domain credentials. And there it is. So now we actually do have an image. I could install the Server 2012 R2 standard to this machine over the network now. I don't want to do that. Eventually I'm going to build this up as I believe a Windows 8 machine. So I'm just going to go ahead and power it off. And that should cover everything I wanted to in this video. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them for me below, and I will try to reply in a timely fashion. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.